Hey guys, this is Cindy, Blue Star at Home. Today I'm going to be sanding down the top of a piece that we are getting ready to refinish. So I thought I would show you the process for sanding a tabletop, because that is one of the questions that I get probably most often, is either how do I do it, or I've sanded and am I ready to stain, or I stained and it doesn't look right, and come to find out they haven't followed the sanding process. So I'm going to walk you through the process today of how to appropriately sand a piece so that it's ready for stain and you get your best results. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the stripper, because actually this piece we have already stripped the top coat off. You can sand the top coat off. It's just going to make your sanding last like forever to get that top coat off, and it's a whole lot quicker and easier just to strip the top coat off. This is my stripper of choice at the moment. It is strong and works quickly. Usually we do 2 to 3 coats of the top coat to get the stripper off. You just spread the top coat on. We use a cheap chip brush. Let it soak for a few minutes, and then a plastic scraper to scrape the gunk off, and I just scrape it off and wipe it onto some old newspaper or something. And repeat. Spread the stripper on, scrape it off with a plastic scraper. You don't want to use a metal scraper. That will, you run the risk of gouging your wood. So not what we recommend. So once you've got the top coat stripped off, then we just take a scrubby and some mineral spirits and scrub it down, and that gets the excess stripper off, and it deactivates the stripper so it's not working anymore. So we've now got this, we've stripped off the top coat and we've cleaned it with mineral spirits, and it is ready to sand. So that's the first step in getting ready to refinish, is getting your top coat off. Okay, second thing you need to know is this solid wood or is this veneer? Veneer is real wood. It's a really thin piece of real wood that's glued on top of a different kind of wood, or MDF or particle board. So the easiest way I find to find out if it's real wood or veneer is to check the back. So here I am on the back of this piece, and I'm gonna look at the edge. Right here, I'm looking at this edge, and I'm looking for a little line at the top that shows the difference between the veneer on top and the wood below. And I'm not seeing a line. See, I'm seeing grain line, and it goes all the way to the top. So this tells me that this top is solid wood. And I suspect it was, because this is maple, and a lot of maple, you don't usually find maple veneer unless it's bird's eye maple or something like that. So this is solid wood, so I don't have to be concerned when I'm sanding that I'm going to sand through the veneer. Okay, next thing we need to talk about is the sander. I use an orbital sander, a variable speed orbital sander. This is mine. It's a Bosch. Looks like this. And I can adjust the speed on the end here, different speeds. I can swap out the grit of sanding disc, and it's hook and loop. So pretty standard sandpaper fits on here. The brand of sander I don't think really matters. An orbital sander is generally better than a belt sander. Belt sanders you can lose control of pretty quick, especially on veneer. You can go right through the veneer. So I prefer to stick with my orbital. For wood that has already been finished, so it has already been sanded and stained and smoothed, so the wood itself is already smooth. You don't need to start with 60 or 80 grit. That's too coarse for wood that's already pretty smooth. Those are reserved for like unfinished, like if you've built a tabletop out of unfinished wood and you need to sand it smooth, then you're going to start with a 60 or 80 and work your way up. But for furniture that's already got a finish on it, 100 grit is the place to start. The second secret that you need to know is I've just put a fresh piece of sandpaper on my sander, but I am not going to turn the sander on and get going because the abrasive particles on the sandpaper have sharp edges right now because it's brand new, and those are too sharp and they will scratch your finish. So I'm going to knock that down a little bit by sanding it, just rubbing another piece of sandpaper up against it and knock down those sharp edges, and then I'm ready to sand. Okay, so here's my sander, and I've got an extra piece of sandpaper, and I'm just going to rub these together. And it's just going to knock down those sharp edges. And now I'm ready to sand. Be sure that you wear a mask. You may wear a respirator. This is an N95 mask I get at the hardware store. But you don't want to be breathing in the particles that are going to be generated when you sand. And I sand outside, and so I have less of a hazard, but still it's always smart to wear a mask. So before we start, here's your next secret. We are going to be moving through 100, 120, 150, 180. 4 grits of paper. So how do you know when it's time to move from one grit to another? Well, here's a little hack for you. Let me show you. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm just going to lightly make marks over the surface. Okay, so that was simple. I just did squiggles across the top of the surface. I didn't press down hard. I just kind of slung the pencil around. And as you could see, I've got light pencil marks. So I'm going to start with 100 grit, and I'm going to sand with the grain the entire surface back and forth slowly until those pencil marks have disappeared. And when they have disappeared, then it's time to change grits. So I'm going to put my mask on and let's get sanding. Okay, so I made 2 passes over this tabletop, but I still have pencil marks, so it is not time to change grit. I'm gonna keep making passes over it, long and slow. So there are a couple of things that are important to know, so that you get an evenly sanded surface, and you don't get the little sanding squiggles that tend to show up. There's a couple of causes for those. So one of those is sanding with fresh sandpaper without knocking those sharp points off. So we've already taken care of that. Another is that some people sand, they try to help the sander and apply pressure. And when you push on that sander, then you're driving the sandpaper into the grain, and that can cause sanding squiggles. I don't know if you noticed, but my fingers, I was just holding the sander with my fingers. The only thing I'm doing with my hand is guiding it so it doesn't go crazy and run off the end, and it goes where I want it to go, but I am not helping the sander with any pressure. The other thing is, if you have a place where the finish is being stubborn and it doesn't want to come off, you do not want to tilt your sander and try to help it, because then you're going to be sanding a divot in your wood. That's why you just always do all the way across, long strokes all the way across. Don't try to sand one end and then move over and try to sand the other half. You can end up with uneven sanding on the ends. So long all the way across, slow, zero pressure. That's the way to win. It's going to probably take at least 30 minutes just to sand this top off. And probably more than that. And a dining room table is a good hour and a half sanding job. It takes a while to work through all the grits. So that's what we're going to be doing. Hang with me. Okay, so I just finished with 100 grit, and the pencil marks have disappeared. So I'm going to grab my pencil and do pencil marks again over the top, just like I did before. Just little scribbles all over the surface. And that will be my guide as we go to the next grit, which is 120. So I've got a fresh piece of 120 on, and I'm going to take my sandpaper that I just took off and use it to stuff it up and get it ready to go. Okay, same process. No pressure, with the grain, full length, nice and slow until the pencil marks are gone. This is 120 grit. Okay, so I have finished with my final sand with 180 grit, and I have done the edges through all the grits. So my orbital sanding is done, and it took me exactly an hour to go through all that. So that gives you an idea of low and slow is the name of the game. So now I'm gonna see, before I just start slapping some stain on here, I'm gonna take a look at my sanding job and see if I'm really finished, because I think I am, but you never know. So I'm gonna brush off the sanding dust again, and I'm gonna use some mineral spirits. I'm gonna use Fusion's odorless solvent and a blue shop towel. You do not want to use water. If you put water on raw wood, it will raise the grain, and then you have to go back and resand. So mineral spirits is the name of the game. And I'm just going to put a generous amount on my towel, and I'm going to start wiping it on. And you can see, this gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when it's stained. So you'll have obvious signs if it's blotchy, if you've missed a spot, that kind of stuff. It's going to show here. So this is looking good to me. Now this has a deep scratch here. I can't feel it anymore, but I can see it, which tells me that it's going to show on the stain too. It is not worth it to me to spend another hour sanding the whole thing to get that scratch out. But it may be important to you, so just know that whatever shows now with the mineral spirits on it is what's going to show when you stain. So this all on here. Okay. One thing to note is that different species of wood take stain differently, and so you can use the same color of stain and use it on 3 different projects and get 3 different colors, and it's because of the wood. It just absorbs more or less depending on the wood. This is maple. Maple is very hard. I'm not going to get this dark. I will use cappuccino on it, but it's not going to be super dark. So the great thing about using mineral spirits is that it also serves as a slip coat for the stain. I personally never use wood conditioner. It could be really helpful on soft woods like pine, which can stain splotchy, but I haven't had that problem. So I have had issues when I did use wood conditioner, which is probably why I don't use it anymore, because I used it and then I had to sand again and get it all off and start all over. So this is now ready to stain. So for a bonus, hang on, we'll show you our staining process, and you can see how pretty this is going to turn out. Okay, we are ready to stain, and I'm going to stain this in Fusion's Cappuccino. This is the new pint size, which is awesome because it's the equivalent of 4 of our little cans for the price of 3 little cans. So it saves you some money if you stain a lot, which we do. But one of those little cans just goes forever. I can get, I don't even know how many projects out of one little can. It just goes forever. So I have opened this. Set that aside. And you want to stir. You do not want to shake. You don't want to introduce bubbles into your mix. So I'm going to stir this well. And it stirs up pretty easy. Okay. And I use just a cheap chip brush, a throwaway brush, when I'm staining. So, all right. Wear a rubber glove. Just keeps you from trying to have to get stain off your hands. If you do get stain on your hands, mineral spirits or that odorless solvent will get it out. So now I'm just going to slather on a coat. It doesn't have to be neat or anything. Just slather this on. I try to work pretty quickly. It's warm out today. The sun's shining, so this is going to start to dry quicker than usual, probably. So just going to slap on a coat, stain. You can also use an applicator pad to apply the stain, which I do a lot of times if the wood is going to take the stain well, like oak or something like that. But with maple being a hardwood and it doesn't like to soak in, I'm going to give it lots of stain to give it lots of chances to soak in. So come along and get the edges. All the way around. The other thing is I always refinish the top before I paint my base. And this is the very reason. If I drip stain now, I don't want it dripping on my pretty fresh paint. So, okay, stain is on.
I got a lot more, I think.
Oh yeah, I think you got 20 something coming.
So
You almost through
the
with
can
it?
says wait
Well, all
9
these boxes on
or
there,
10
I
minutes
think
Yeah,
and then wipe it back.
Like 2 hours left.
I find that 9 or 10 minutes
Yeah, I'm almost done.
is too long, and then it's really hard and gets sticky and really hard.
Oh my God.
So I pretty much apply and then turn around and then wipe it back.
Buddies are getting off right now.
So
Oh man. Take the rest of the packages home with you. Bring them tomorrow.
Hey, sounds good.
You're okay with that, huh?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
let me just wipe it back. That's my edges. Get a fresh rag. And this is beautiful. And I'm going to go with one more. You keep wiping until you're not wiping off stain. You're trying to wipe off everything that's sitting on top that didn't soak in. So and this feels slick, so I think I've just about got it. Okay, so you can tell from the color it's not dark, like you would think cappuccino would be, but it's brings out the beautiful color of the maple. I'm going to let this dry for 9 hours. So typically that's overnight. I do it one day, I come out the next day. I'm going to repeat the process of slathering on stain and wiping it off, and then I'm done. I don't need a top coat because the top coat is built in to the stain and finishing oil, which we lovingly call SFO. So that's it. Hope that's been helpful to you. Okay, let's talk real quick about how you dispose of the stain stuff. The stain is an oil base and it can be combustible, and so we just want to use wisdom about how we dispose of it. I typically lay my brush and my stir stick out on a work table until they dry, and then I throw them away. The towels that I use, I'm going to spread them flat and I drape them like over the edge of the trash can or something like that. I want them to dry before they get crumbled up and buried in the bottom of the trash can. So you just make sure that the stain product is dry before you actually throw it away. And then you're all good. Drop questions below if you have them. All of the products you've seen today, I'll post a link that they can be found. The Fusion products are found on my website at bluestarathome.com, and everything else will be in my Amazon store, and I'll post the link for that. You guys have a great day. Bye.